Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about the history of open and distance learning.
A fascinating topic.
Yeah. Listeners want to know how we got from, handwritten lessons delivered by mail to those massive online courses we have today.
Yeah, it's quite a journey.
It really is. And so we've got some excerpts from a study guide about open and distance learning to help us along the way.
Excellent. Looking forward to that.
All right, so get ready to, got to go back in time with us and see how this all unfolded.
Should be fun.
Yeah. So did you know that distance learning has been around for almost 2 centuries?
Wow, that's a long time.
I know.
Mm.
Really puts things into perspective, right?
It does.
Yeah, so the study guide kind of breaks it down into these 3 main stages:
Yeah.
correspondence, sound and video signals, and then computer technology.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So let's start with the correspondence stage.
Okay.
That kicks off in the mid-1800s. Back then, it was all about, using mail as the primary way to deliver those educational materials.
Oh, I see.
So no Zoom, no fancy discussion boards, just letters, packed with lessons and assignments.
You got it.
And it's crazy to think the first official distance education program was actually teaching shorthand through the mail.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you even imagine, trying to master a skill like that without ever meeting your instructor in person?
That's a tough one.
I know, right?
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It really just shows you how much people wanted to learn
Yeah.
and how far they would go to do it,
Absolutely. And I guess institutions started to realize, hey, there's a real need here.
Yeah.
There's a need to bridge this gap in education.
Yeah,
And, things started to happen.
for sure.
A good example of this is the University of London's external program, which was established in 1858.
Oh, interesting.
And this was a big deal because it was the first university in the world to offer degrees completely through distance learning.
Wow, the first.
The first.
That's pretty remarkable.
Isn't that amazing? And it was global from the get-go, right?
Really?
Students were participating from all over the British Commonwealth,
Yeah.
even as far away as Nigeria.
So cool.
I know. And closer to home, the University of Wisconsin was also a pioneer. They incorporated correspondence study into their system as early as 1891.
Makes you realize, this wasn't just a passing fad.
Yeah.
It was a real movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And it just shows that drive, right,
Mhm.
to connect learners and educators no matter the distance.
Absolutely. And as technology developed, that drive just got stronger and stronger.
And of course, letters could only take you so far.
Right,
So then comes the invention of the radio during World War I,
right.
which just revolutionized everything about distance learning.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it marked the beginning of what we call the sound and video signals era.
I see.
So the first educational radio broadcast happened in 1916. And instead of, people learning in isolation with their letters,
Mhm.
it became more of a shared experience.
That must have been a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. It's an
Yeah.
incredible moment in history.
Yeah.
And even in the study guide, they mention a program called College of the Air.
Oh.
Yeah, which was later renamed University of the Air.
University of the Air. I love that.
Isn't that such a great name?
So cool.
And it just kind of, captures that excitement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that sense of possibility
Mm.
that this new technology brought to education.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, radio was great, but it still had its limits compared to what we have today, right?
Of course.
It was still very much a one-way street.
Yeah.
But it really kind of set the stage for more interactive and engaging distance learning down the road.
Right. You got to start somewhere. Right.
Exactly. And then television enters the scene in the 1930s.
Oh, okay.
And that's when we start to see the first educational programs on TV, although it wasn't super widespread at that point.
Interesting. So we see this trend developing, technology becoming more and more important in how we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first you have radio, then television, all paving the way for that video-based learning that we're so used to now, right?
Makes sense.
It's really amazing to see how those early broadcasts led to the virtual classrooms and online lectures we have today.
It's a fascinating progression.
And then, well, this is where things really start to get interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
We enter the computer technology stage.
Okay.
And that all starts in the 1980s with the arrival of personal computers and satellites.
A big decade for tech.
A huge decade for tech. And with those advancements, universities could suddenly offer programs to students, thousands of miles away.
Wow.
So I think it's safe to say this is where online learning as we know it today really takes root.
It really does. This stage set the scene for that explosion of online learning we've seen in recent
Oh,
decades.
totally. But there was something else happening around this time too, right?
Right. This is also when open learning as a philosophy starts to emerge.
Oh, yeah. So what exactly is open learning? Like, isn't all learning kind of, open in a way?
That's a great question. It's a bit more nuanced than that.
All right.
Open learning is really about giving you, the learner, all the control.
Okay.
It's about letting you choose what you want to learn, when you learn it, and how you learn it best.
So instead of fitting into a mold, learners can tailor their education to their own lives.
Exactly. We all learn differently. Some of us love deadlines, while others prefer to go at their own pace, right? Open learning recognizes that and allows each person to build a learning journey that works for them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it's a perfect fit for distance learning,
Oh, absolutely.
Both are breaking down those traditional barriers.
And that's how we arrive at what we know as open and distance learning today, right?
Exactly. This perfect blend of technology and a fresh new approach to education.
And speaking of fresh new approaches, the next big step in this story is the rise of open universities.
Ah, yes. The Open University.
That's where we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into open and distance learning.
So before the break, we were talking about the 1980s and that boom in online learning.
Right. Computers and satellites really changed the game.
They did. But wasn't internet access still pretty limited back then?
Oh, absolutely. Widespread internet access was still a ways off.
So how did people actually access those early online courses?
Well, there's a bit of a patchwork,
Okay.
Some universities use those early pre-internet systems.
Like what?
Things like dial-up bulletin board systems.
BBSs.
Yeah, to share course materials and have discussions.
I see.
Others, believe it or not, mailed out floppy disks
Floppy disks? Wow.
or even VHS tapes with lectures recorded on them.
Wow. That's a far cry from the streaming services we have today.
It was definitely a lot more cumbersome, that's for sure.
I can imagine. And those early learning management systems, or LMSs,
Right.
they were pretty basic, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, very rudimentary.
Not like the sophisticated platforms we have today.
Not at all. But, even with those limitations, the potential was clear.
Yeah, the seeds were definitely planted. And we were also talking about the rise of open learning as a philosophy.
Absolutely. A really important shift in thinking about education.
So can you unpack that a little more? It sounds simple on the surface, but I'm guessing there's more to it.
Oh, there definitely is. It's not just about, learning out in the open.
Cool.
It's more about a change in who holds the power.
Interesting.
In traditional education, the institution or the instructor, they usually call the shots.
Right, they decide what you learn, when you learn it, all of that.
Exactly. But open learning flips that on its head.
Okay.
It puts the learner in control.
So instead of fitting into this rigid system, learners can choose what works best for them.
Exactly. It recognizes that we all learn differently.
Yeah.
Some people thrive in a structured environment with deadlines, while others need more flexibility.
Makes sense.
Open learning lets each person design their own learning journey,
That's really empowering, especially when you combine it with distance learning.
Absolutely. It's a learner-centric approach, through and through.
And that brings us to the rise of open universities, right?
Yes. A key chapter in this story.
The first one was established in the UK in 1969.
That's right. A pivotal moment.
The name itself, Open University, it just screams accessibility, doesn't it?
It does. It was all about breaking down those traditional barriers to education.
So what were the driving forces behind it? Was it just about making higher education available to more people?
Well, that was a big part of it.
Okay.
But it was also about challenging the status quo.
How so?
Well, this was the late 1960s, a time of a lot of social change.
Right.
And there was a growing sense that those traditional universities weren't serving everyone.
I see.
Like lots of adults had missed out on higher ed for various reasons. Maybe they couldn't afford it, or they had family responsibilities, or maybe they just didn't fit the mold of a typical uni student.
So it was about making education more inclusive.
Exactly. The Open University was designed to cater to those folks who were being left behind.
So how did they do that?
They offered flexible learning options, often using those distance learning technologies we talked about.
Like correspondence courses and later radio and TV broadcasts?
Yeah. And they got rid of those strict entry requirements.
Wow, so no exams or prerequisites.
Nope. They wanted to make higher ed a possibility for anyone, no matter their background.
That's really cool. And the impact of that first open university, it went way beyond the UK, right?
Oh, absolutely. It became a model for other countries.
So it was kind of like a ripple effect.
Exactly. Canada followed suit in 1970 with Athabasca University.
Right.
Then Spain in 72 with the National University of Distance Education.
Wow.
And Germany in 74 with the Fern University in Hagen.
It's amazing how quickly it spread.
It really is. And the study guide mentions that open universities really took off in Asia.
Yeah, India alone has 17 of them. That's incredible.
It is, and there are a few reasons for that.
Like what?
Well, many Asian countries were seeing huge growth in demand for higher education.
Because their economies were booming and their populations were growing.
Exactly, and traditional universities just couldn't keep up.
Right.
Open universities offered a way to scale up quickly and affordably.
Kind of like mass production, but for education?
Yeah, you could say that. But it wasn't just about quantity.
Okay.
Open universities were also designed to be relevant.
In what way?
They focused on practical skills and workforce development.
So they were tailoring their programs to meet the needs of their local economies.
Exactly. Which made them really attractive to both students and governments.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Governments could expand educational opportunities.
And individuals could get those skills to improve their lives.
It was a win-win.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget about technology.
Oh, absolutely not. Technology played a crucial role in this global expansion.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to think how the internet, which was so new back then, transformed everything.
Totally. I mean, those early distance learners relying on postal services, they
Right.
probably couldn't have imagined a world with online lectures, you know?
Streamed instantly to anywhere in the world.
It's remarkable. The internet made distance learning so much more accessible
And interactive.
and engaging. All those online platforms, digital resources, virtual classrooms.
It's like the world has shrunk.
It really has. And knowledge is no longer limited by geography.
And the study guide points out an interesting trend in Asia.
Oh.
Out of 41 open and distance learning institutions there,
Yeah?
only 5 are private.
Interesting. So the vast majority are public institutions.
Yeah, run by the government.
That suggests a real commitment to open and distance learning from those governments.
It seems like they see it as a core part of their education systems, not just an alternative.
Exactly. They recognize that it can help create a more equitable system.
One that caters to diverse needs.
Right. People can pursue their education while working or raising a family.
It's all about meeting learners where they are.
Absolutely. But I'm sure some people were worried about quality.
Yeah. Did this flexible approach mean sacrificing academic rigor?
That was a valid concern.
So how did open universities address that?
They took it very seriously. They developed systems for curriculum development,
Right.
for assessment, for quality assurance.
So they made sure their programs were up to par.
Exactly. They also hired highly qualified faculty.
Experts in distance education.
Yep. And they invested in research to keep improving their teaching methods.
So it wasn't just about copying the traditional classroom model.
Not at all. They were innovating and adapting to the unique challenges of distance learning.
They embraced new technologies too, right?
Oh, yeah. Online forums, video conferencing, all sorts of tools to make learning engaging.
So it became about creating a whole learning experience.
Exactly. Fostering interaction, collaboration, a sense of community.
Even though learners might be miles apart.
Exactly. And this all ties back to those open learning principles we talked about.
Choice, flexibility, learner empowerment.
Right. Open universities put those principles into practice.
It's really a perfect synergy, isn't it?
It is. But as technology keeps advancing, it makes you wonder,
About what?
will these principles still be relevant in the future?
Or will we need to rethink what open learning even means?
Those are great questions, and those are exactly the questions we'll tackle in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've come a long way in exploring the history of open and distance learning.
It's been quite a journey from those handwritten letters to today's online learning platforms.
And with the rise of open universities, it's clear that accessibility and learner empowerment are at the heart of it all.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder what the future holds for this field.
That's what I was thinking. We've seen so much innovation already. Where do we go from here?
Well, technology will undoubtedly continue to play a huge role.
Yeah, I can see that.
We can expect even more advanced online platforms using cutting-edge technologies like virtual reality and AI.
Wow. Virtual reality in education. That's pretty wild.
I know. Imagine attending a virtual lecture in ancient Rome.
Or dissecting a heart in a holographic lab, all from your living room.
Exactly. It's mind-blowing, and it has the potential to make high-quality education accessible to anyone.
But with all this tech, what happens to the human element in learning? Will teachers become obsolete?
That's a valid concern, but I believe that education is fundamentally a human endeavor.
Okay.
It's about connecting with ideas, with each other, and with ourselves on a deeper level.
So it's not about replacing teachers with robots.
Not at all. Technology should be a tool to empower teachers, not replace them.
Right, to help create more engaging and effective learning experiences for students.
Exactly. I envision a future where technology frees up teachers to focus on what they do best.
Like mentoring students and inspiring a love of learning.
Exactly. Those are things AI can't replicate.
It seems like finding that balance is key.
Absolutely. Embracing innovation while preserving those essential human connections in education.
We need to make sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
Couldn't agree more. And another important trend is this growing emphasis on lifelong learning.
Yeah, with the world changing so fast, we need to be constantly learning and adapting
Right, and open and distance learning is perfectly suited for that.
because it's so flexible and accessible.
Exactly. We'll see more bite-sized learning opportunities for people who want to upskill or explore new interests.
So it's not just about getting a degree anymore.
It's about personal growth and adapting to this ever-changing world.
Open and distance learning empowers people to take control of their education.
Absolutely. Looking back on our deep dive, what surprised you the most?
You know, it really struck me was the sheer determination of those early distance learners.
Those pioneers studying shorthand by mail or listening to lectures on the radio?
They had limited resources, but their hunger for knowledge was incredible.
It's a testament to the power of human curiosity and that drive to learn,
It really makes you appreciate how far we've come.
and how much potential lies ahead. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay.
Open and distance learning has transformed education, driven by technology and a commitment to accessibility. So what do you envision for its future?
That's a great question for our listeners to think about.
How will technology continue to shape open and distance learning, and what impact will it have on global education? The possibilities are endless.
It's an exciting time to be a part of this evolution in learning.
It really is.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into open and distance learning.
We hope you found it insightful.
And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into a topic you're eager to explore.
Until then, keep learning and stay curious.